U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt once said, "Speak softly, but carry a big stick and you will go far." Chief Counselor Crystal Smith of the Haisla Nation is the perfect embodiment of that sentiment. She's soft-spoken and thoughtful, but do not for a moment underestimate her strength and determination to lift her people out of poverty and dependence. Chief Counselor Smith is the chair of the First Nations LNG Alliance, supporting both the enormous LNG project in Kitimat, as well as the Coastal GasLink pipeline. Not without controversy, she sees this as a precious opportunity for the Haisla Nation. Chief Counselor Crystal Smith. Chief, you're in such a position of power and responsibility. What was there in your background that led you to this position?
Honestly, I would have never had the ambition to become a part of it. There's always a sense of negativity when it comes to being a leadership in a small community like ours. But I was fortunate enough to sit as the executive assistant for a couple of inspiring chief counselors, one being our first female chief counselor, and that in itself was a huge accomplishment in our community, and that only happened in 2009. And then afterwards, I was the executive assistant to Chief Counselor Ellis Ross, and was fortunate enough to be able to have moments of reality, I would say, with him, having real conversations where I'd be able to ask questions of his reasoning as to why decisions were being made in the manner that they were, and got to hear him speak at an event in Vancouver that I almost begged to witness, and listen to him speak about the changes he wanted for our people, and became so inspired to the point of wanting to being a part of his team, making the decisions and being a part of the push to have this kind of reality we see for our people today. So I ran in the 2013 election as a councillor and was successful in getting one of the first 4-year terms to serve our nation.
Our backgrounds, of course, the way we grow up, it affects the person we eventually become. And in a speech, you said, poverty, been there, suicide, been there. Can you elaborate on what you were talking about?
I grew up with my grandparents, with my parents and 2 of my uncles in a 4 or 5 bedroom house. And back then, you don't think that it's out of the norm to be living with your 2 uncles and your parents and your grandparents. And still to this day, I talk about it with my children, and they are absolutely amazed that the environment that my twin and I grew up in, and they are actually envious of it. But the fact of the matter is that I was growing up in poverty. In regards to the comment around my statements of experiencing suicide, sorry.
It was very personal.
Very. In 2013, my common law, the father of my 2 girls, committed suicide. So, and that, I mean, while I speak about my personal experience, there there are many in our community that have endured similar situations. So it definitely.
And so, because of your personal experiences, did that motivate you even more to say, something has to be done, we have to change some things, how can I make it better?
Absolutely. It's, while those are two of the main statements that potentially shaped who I am today, there are many different factors that shaped my motivation and my personal desire to have a change in our community. Those two being probably the most prevalent, but also growing up with, I would almost describe it as a lack of my identity to the Indigenous aspect of who I am as a person.
One of the remarkable pieces of your history is that in looking at various First Nations organizations, they often feel that development or economic growth destroys the culture. You flip this on its head, and you've seen an opportunity to use development and economic development to conserve, to save culture.
Yes.
How did you get there?
I mean, no level of government has ever been able to assist us in revitalizing our identity. And that was a key part of my desire of becoming a part of Ellis's team, was that he saw that, and he visioned a greater opportunity for our people, and saw no other solution being brought forward. It was in large part of that one speech that I was fortunate enough to listen to him, where I thought that this is our opportunity. It's our once in a lifetime opportunity to make huge strides, to be able to close the gap in our community when it came to quality of life and revitalizing our Haisla identity.
It is amazing to think of you sitting down at a table, because the first step is you don't just say, okay, we'll do economic development.
While I'm essentially the face and spokesperson for our nation, we wouldn't be where we're at without an amazing, talented team. As far back as 2009, we were fortunate enough to have our own advisors, our own team of lawyers, a team that was essentially an opportunity for our nation that was never provided before.
And I would say negotiations require amazing patience. You tell the story of just to get one of the permits out of heaven knows how many permits, you had 78 meetings.
I believe it was 78. That was, yeah, it was quite the lead up to the success of that one specific permit. I believe that was the Fisheries Authorization Act permit application.
Can you describe for people who've never sat around that kind of negotiating table, like what's it like? Do you get to a conclusion and we'll take a break and we'll come back next week?
I actually don't sit at the negotiating tables. I think the way I'd describe it is I'm the card in the back pocket, and will only come in when things aren't necessarily going in a manner that's productive and in the best interest of the nation. So early on, when I was a counselor, I had the desire to see what a negotiating table was like. And I expected it to be, pounding the table and, spit flying from people's mouths and just very entertaining. And I mean no disrespect, because I know that there might be people watching this that remember me sitting in a room asking to leave. It was, and it was interesting. how much time could be spent on an interpretation of one word.
And of course, you didn't take the easy way of some economic little investment. You immediately are into LNG, which is an enormous, controversial topic, I would say, when you first started.
Most definitely.
Controversial even within the Haisla Nation?
You know, I give the credit where credit is due. Our previous leadership placed a huge importance on informing our people and providing educational opportunities for them when it came to LNG and the good, the bad, the ugly information in regards to the commodity. And one of a very strategic move in the sense that they held a public referendum in order to get the support from our community, and that in itself is a lengthy process and one that, you know, we didn't take lightly, and to be able to have this majority support from our membership in regards to a new industry in our territory was probably the most important and valuable step that our leadership took. So controversial in our community. I'm not saying that it's 100% support. We have people that definitely, you know, keep us accountable, keep our staff and keep our leadership accountable when it comes to the development that's occurring. But we also see the positives that come from a new industry in our territory.
I know that you have had people say that you've sold out, and that comes from other communities, whether it's environmentalists, some other First Nations. Is that hurtful?
At the time, it was, and for the most part, the public at large making comments such as that, without ever stepping foot in our community, without ever coming to see and hear about the realities of our past. You know, those comments, I would say, didn't hurt as much as the ones that were directed through social media, like Facebook. I received quite a number of very interesting messages, but they were from my own people, in a sense of Indigenous members from other communities, calling me colonized, calling me an apple, calling me a sellout. And it sparked a conversation with other inspiring leaders that I'm fortunate enough to call my friends, and sparked a conversation of one where I've termed as not selling out but investing in our people. In fact, we've invested in our community. 100% invested in our community. And we're able to see those investments coming to reality today. So I often, when I receive messages or receive criticism, I invite you to our community. Come have a conversation with myself and our leadership in our community, and come listen to what the positive aspects of an industry are.
Where did that strength or courage come from that you stood up to all of that?
And I was getting ready to do, and I would literally want to cry at moments where I was doing keynote addresses or sit on panels in front of hundreds of people. And one comment that was made to me was, allow your people to speak through you. And it's 2,000 people that I'm elected on behalf of today. But what most empowers and inspires me is the change that is going to happen in the future. So what my grandsons' lives are going to look like. My first term on council, I unfortunately lost my common law to suicide. So in 2013, it was my first year on council. And then my first few months as the elected chief councillor, my daughter surprised me with my first grandson. Through the pandemic, and we knew when he was born that there was a possibility. But during the pandemic, he was diagnosed with autism. And when I think of him, I'm sorry.
How old is he now?
He just turned 6 on the 21st of September. So when I think about the supports that our nation has the ability to provide for him, and what his life is going to be like without me when I go, that I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about him, and I don't have to worry about my daughter.
And it's because of the good work that you've done and the bravery that you've shown.
I see glimpses here and there already. Like I stated, I have an identical twin sister. To hear her speak our language in like 5 to 10 increments, and she's always learning and she's always progressing. It's absolutely amazing to even witness those changes already. I've been fortunate enough to sit with to be with our staff within that culture and language department, where they're going through our archives and they're learning about their history, their family's history of where their trap lines were and what their grandfathers or their great grandfathers had done, or their grandmothers. Essentially learning more of their identity of who they are as Haisla. And to see the amount of confidence and the amount of pride that they have to be Indigenous, and to hear even people in older generations than myself that had similar situations and similar backgrounds that I grew up with, talk about how proud they are, when that hasn't always been the case for most of us. You grew up and being taught all the horrible statistics about what it means to be Indigenous, and to hear those people that came through that generation, that era, saying, I am proud to be Indigenous, and I'm even prouder to be Haisla. It's changing. And talking to teachers that were my teachers in high school about the difference of my generation to the generations that are going through that school today, and the confidence that they have, I can only imagine that it's only going to get better. It's only going to get brighter. There's going to be employment opportunities. We're already creating role models of today for future generations when we're talking about producing doctors, because we have no constraints in regards to what we're able to support our people through. It's absolutely, this is probably the most I've been ever able to describe and put into words what I see for our future. And it's tremendous to see. It's absolutely amazing.
And we're sitting in a wonderful new health center, for instance. When you talk about services that are now possible, this would be one of them.
Absolutely. And it is an amazing, beautiful building that it essentially is a representation of our cultural, our culture as well, being in the form of a longhouse. We've been able to invest not only in our new health center and all the amazing technology that it's fit with, but we've been able to also invest in a youth center. And that's strictly for youth programming, youth activities, before and after school care. And it's the first ever in our community. And it's it's absolutely amazing to be a part of and to witness the changes in our community.
So if we look at your personal story, you're a young, powerful woman in a position of authority. Do you think it's been an advantage or a disadvantage being a woman?
And excuse me for my reaction when you say powerful. And I think I have that reaction because I don't view myself as powerful. We have a great nation, a great team. So I don't consider myself in that description. The portion about being a woman. It hasn't been easy. I'm a single mom. I've got 2 daughters, my youngest being 16. So that in itself, while raising her and missing moments, I think is being more prevalent in my life today. I've been doing this for 10 years. She's 16 now. I think both of them have definitely gotten used to me being here and not being here. But 10 years in, I'm feeling it more.
Everyone, of course, wants to know what's next for you. And a lot of people are hoping it has something to do with politics. Is that a possibility?
I don't know what's next. There are many different possibilities. I have about 1.5 years left in my term here as chief counselor, and my last term I thought was going to be my last term. But 1.5 years is a very long time, and I have definitely started taking steps to ensure that I am set up for success. Meaning, I've taken a look into education to ensure that I have the ability to have options available, and whether politics is a part of that. I mean, I'm looking at every opportunity that's available, and what is in the best interest of my family will definitely be a part of determining what is next.
I think we're all hoping that we continue to see your strength and your opinions wherever you decide the role is.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chief Counselor Crystal Smith, a BC legend.